Let's see if this works a little bit better here. The Talmud gets its name from the word lamud, taught, and means the teaching. But, oh boy, okay, apparently that's not going to work. Production value. Our production value is always top notch here, everybody. All right, hopefully this works. Where was I? I had a word that I couldn't pronounce. By metonymy, it is taken to mean the book which contains the teaching, which teaching is called Talmud. That is, the doctrinal book which alone fully expounds and explains all the knowledge and teaching of the Jewish people. Remember, fake Jews. As to the origin of the Talmud, the rabbis regard Moses as its first author. Remember, I explained to you in the last video how they claim that Moses got oral instruction from the Lord in addition to the written instruction that he wrote in the Bible. Now, this is nonsense, but that's what they claim. They hold that besides the written law which Moses received from God on Mount Sinai on tables of stone, which is called Torah Shibikta. I started trying to learn Hebrew, but it's rough. He also received interpretations of it, or the oral law, which is called Torah Shebel Peh. They say that this is the reason why Moses remained so long on the mountain, as God could have given him the written law in one day. That's nonsense. This is so long, and remember, it's not like they had loose leaf paper back then with pencils, or they didn't have tablets or whatever. So that claim right there isn't a very good one, in my opinion, right off the bat. Moses is said to have transmitted this oral law to Joshua. Joshua, in turn, to the 70 elders. These elders to the prophets, and the prophets to the great synagogue. It is held that it was later transmitted successively to certain rabbis until it was no longer possible to retain it orally. Whatever may be said about this story of the rabbis, it is sufficiently known to us that before the birth of Christ, schools existed in Palestine in which sacred literature was taught. The commentaries of the doctors of the law were noted down on charts and lists as an aid to memory. And these, when collected together, formed the beginnings of the Jewish Talmud. In the 2nd century after Christ, Rabbi Judah, who, because of the sanctity of his life, was called the saint, and the prince, realizing that the learning of the Jews was diminishing, that their oral law was being lost, and that the Jewish people were being dispersed, was the first to consider ways and means of restoring and preserving their oral law. He collected all the lists and charts, and from them he made a book which was called Sefer Mishnayot, or Mishnah, a deuterosis, or second law. He divided it into 6 parts, each of which was divided into many chapters. We shall consider these later. The Mishnah is the foundation and the principal part of the whole Talmud. This book was accepted by the Jews everywhere and was recognized as their authentic code of law. It was expounded in their academies in Babylon, at Shura, Pumbeditha, and Nehartia, and in their academies in Palestine, at Tiberias, Iamnia, and Lydda. As the interpretations increased with the passing of time, the disputations and decisions of the doctors of the law concerning the Mishnah were written down, and these writings constituted another part of the Talmud called the Gemara. Gemara? These 2 parts are so disposed throughout the whole Talmud that the Mishnah serves first as a kind of text of the law and is followed by the Gemara as an analysis of its various opinions leading to definite decisions. All the precepts of the Mishnah, however, were not discussed in the Jewish schools. Those whose use was nullified by the destruction of the temple, and those whose observation was possible only in the Holy Land, were not commented upon. Their explanation was left until the coming of Elias and the Messiah. For this reason, some parts of the Mishnah are lacking in the Gemara. And I'll stop there. So, sorry, I had to talk to my dad. So, where were we here? In interpreting the Mishnah of Rabbi Judah, the schools of Palestine and Babylon followed each their own method, and by thus following their own way gave rise to a twofold Gemara. Whatever. Ugh! Just seeing how far we want to go with this today. We're probably won't end to go to all of this. We'll probably stop way over here. All right, I'm talking out loud. The Jerusalem and the Babylonian versions. The author of the Jerusalem version was Rabbi Jochanan, who was the head of the synagogue in Jerusalem for 80 years. That's insane. He wrote 39 chapters of commentaries on the Mishnah, which he completed in the year 230 AD. The Babylonian Gemara, however, was not compiled by any one person, nor at any one time. Rabbi Ashchi, I'm going to go with Ashchi, began it in 327 AD and labored over it for 60 years. He was followed by Rabbi Maramar about the year 427 AD, and it was completed by Rabbi Abina about the year 500 AD. The Babylonian Gemara has 36 chapters of interpretations. This twofold Gemara added to the Mishnah makes also a twofold Talmud. The Jerusalem version, which, on account of its brevity and obscurity, is not much used, and the Babylonian version, which has been held in the highest esteem by Jews of all times. The Gemara is followed by additions called Sophoth. It was thus that Rabbi Chia first styled his opinions on the Mishnayot. He and Rabbi Uchaya were the first to explain this book publicly in the schools. Commentaries on the Mishnah, which were made by the doctors outside the schools, were called Bariatoth, or extraneous opinions. These commentaries were further supplemented by other decisions called Pisk Tophoth, short, these, and simple principles. For nearly 500 years after the Babylonian Talmud was completed, the study of literature was greatly hampered, partly due to public calamities and partly owing to dissensions among the scholars. But in the 11th century, others wrote further additions to the Talmud. Chief among these were the Tosfoth of Rabbi Asher. Besides these, there appeared the Perush of Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, called by the Jews Rambam for short, by the Christians Maimonides, and by Rabbi Shlomo Iarchi or Rashi. Thus, the Mishnah, Gemara, Tosfoth, the marginal notes of Rabbi Asher, the Pishk Tosfoth, and the Perush Hamishanath of Maimonides, all collected into one, constitute a vast work which is called the Talmud. So we'll stop this here because this one's pretty long. So there you have it. That's I'm getting into this now. Getting hot and heavy.